the whole premise of us getting together and talking is this concept of blurring the line, of which my dad says we should call it shattering the line. That the devil tends to compartmentalize us so that he has full-time ministers and full-time business people, or even the compartmentalization of, you hear like even BGEA, some of our friends at BGEA that run the place over there would say that their board directors will tell you they need to be concerned about the heart and soul of people and not get involved in politics. Therein comes the line again. And so we just see this compartmentalization happening over and over. So our goal here is to discuss these topics and get them on video, get them on audio, and have a stenographer here, and just really begin to get a broad level view of what is it that God is saying today. We truly believe that in the Valley of Dry Bones, I talked Valley of Dry Bones last week, right? Yes. In the Valley of Dry Bones, that the dry bones in that valley are warriors because they arose a great army, right? And so we believe that there are dry bones sitting in churches today, and most of these are in marketplace. And the one thing that would cause dry bones, there's several things, but one of the things in Proverbs it says, a crushed spirit dries the bones. And what can crush your spirit more than you forgetting who you are? And so what we want to do is pull the paradigm off of folks that are sitting in pews thinking that I need to go to work and support the church, as opposed to realizing that He is the church. And we'll talk a little bit about that today. We don't want to dive too heavy into church. That's for a whole different topic. But so it's like if you walk up to a building and someone is painting the building, big giant building, and they've built all this scaffolding. And you walk up and you see they're on the bottom floor and they're painting and they've got all the scaffolding, and you're looking and you're like, that scaffolding is going to fall apart. You won't be able to get too high on that building if you don't repair that scaffolding. That's Justin Reeder. She was asking if Zach was Justin Reeder. It's like, that's the best compliment Zach's ever been given. So the thought about paradigms, and James and I have talked a lot about this, paradigms. What we want to talk about are the paradigms that we have and the paradigm of compartmentalization. So if, again, going back to the building, if I walk up to that building and I see the scaffolding and the guy is painting the building, what I want to do is go up to the guy and say, your scaffolding is going to fall apart. Okay, you're not going to be able to paint your building because your scaffolding is falling apart. Let's tear that down. Let's build new scaffolding. Now go back and paint your building. I don't want to paint your building. That's what you need to do. You know, whatever it is that God has called you in the role He's called you, and you do it, but you need to have the proper framework to complete the job. So that's what we want to do in here today, is start to throw out things that tears down scaffolding and puts up new ones, and basically gives people a framework through which they can filter their daily lives and their thoughts through. So I visited a church Sunday. A friend of mine wanted me to come see his church, and not one thing mentioned about the most significant election in the history of America. Not one thing mentioned about at the very minimum, the most significant thing that happened during the week. And it was a sermon, some popcorn sermon on, I forget exactly what it was about, but so there was no grid erected through which people, his flock, could then filter these current events through. Let me say, here's why this is important. The very foundation of America and the foundation of our Constitution and the foundation of freedom came from the pulpits of America. They were the ones that influenced the thinkers and the government officials, even Wall Street. I mean, it was all founded by people with a Judeo-Christian worldview, whether they were believers or not. But a lot of them were believers. Some of them were not. But you had pastors that they understood the times and knew what they should do, just like the men of Issachar, that were at the Constitutional Convention in 1787. Half of the delegates were pastors. And they literally shaped our Constitution. You ask yourself today, in terms of shaping America, do pastors have a seat at the table? No. They don't have a seat at the table. And there's a battle that goes on over that. But you look at America and you ask yourself,
as a Christian, what source do you go to find out information on politics or the fiscal cliff or Benghazi or information on finances in terms of national finances, in terms of, okay, what's happening in Greece and how does that affect me and how should I prepare future generations, my children, my children's children? Where do you go to get that information? You have to go to CNN or Fox News, or you can't get it from the church anymore. At one point you could. At one point the church was the one that said, whoa, nation, you're heading this direction, this is the way we need to go, and the nation course corrected. That's why we have 187 calls to prayer and fasting by presidents and Congress since the beginning of our nation. Now we don't have that anymore because the church has lost its seat at the table. Anyway, there's a whole reason why. There's a whole other section of church.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Are we going to address the why now?
Well, no, I don't want to really.
Why this?
Yes, but I kind of want to go a certain direction this morning,
and then a couple more building blocks,
and then because I think if we start really diving real heavy into the church aspect of it, which we'll touch lightly on it, then today I think we'll kind of get off of where I think that we should go. But then again, who knows? We'll come back. We definitely could. So there's a gajillion different things going on in my mind, and I know all of your minds. But trying to stay on point of what's the problem, who are we, and what's our role, and how can we move forward. Okay, so David kind of did a high level, what's the problem, when he talked, oh, you had that thing. You got that on video last week, right, where you talked about the removal of the church. So let me touch on a few things that we spoke about last week. And if I forgot anything, then chime in. David talked about cultivating faithfulness, that we need to dwell in the land, and that dwell in the land is do good. Correct? Is to do good. And you'll talk more about that. Jumped over to Genesis 3 and how Adam cultivated the ground. And then he spoke about why we're not dwelling in the land, which was the spheres, the two spheres. Was that correct?
Doctrine of two spheres, yeah.
You've
got the marketplace out here, and then you've got the church over here, and it's what Adolf Hitler used to say, shut up, and I'll take care of the heart and soul of our nation, and he did.
Yeah, right.
He termed it positive Christianity. That was actually his term, and that was the propaganda machine. They would pump propaganda about positive Christianity and about the state and why the state should be the one to dictate the governing rules, and all the authority rested with the state. But you can have positive Christianity to simply, in his words, warm the heart. Which you look at America today, we are lock, stock, and barrel swallowing that pill. Oh yeah. Positive Christianity to warm the heart.
But you can see how the devil is a line drawer. I mean, he's like, no, you stay over here, this will be over here, and this guy's over here, and this, and then I think the realm where he gets us the best is in the area of our identity. So when you ask Christ to come into your heart, you are brand new. The old person is gone, the new person has come, but it takes time for your brain to catch up with that new identity. You're a brand new person. It's the same thing when you get married and you make a covenant. James going through this. You've been married, 4 weeks now? You're not the guy you were 4.5 weeks ago. You're not the same guy. You're a brand new person. And you're one. So, but now it's going to take a while for your brain to catch up with the new identity of who you are now. You know what I'm saying? So, and the same is true here. And I just believe that there are marketplace people that believe that they are marketplace people and not ministers of God. And so what we want to do is flip that around.
And just a very simple thing, just super easy. When you come to know Jesus Christ, your lifestyle, your Christianity is not an event. It's not going to a church. It's not trying to do something. It's like I said last week, I don't focus on blinking. I don't focus on breathing. This week I'm going to really focus hard on breathing. It's a lifestyle. It's who I am. It's everywhere I go. Because Jesus Christ is Lord. He is King. It's all about the lordship of Jesus Christ. So it's a lifestyle. It's not an event. I don't have to go on an evangelism explosion campaign because I evangelize everywhere I go. And it's not a dead set focus. I follow the leading of the Holy Spirit and bring value into the spheres wherever I find myself. So it's a lifestyle. Anyway, go ahead.
And I've gotten your definitions from a lot of you. Some of you are slacking. I would like to get your definitions and your two definitions of, and we threw out some words. Gospel, what does that mean? Ministry, missions, what does work mean? What does business mean? What is church? Were there some other words? Because I think I'm missing a couple. Work, yeah.
Christian business.
Christian,
Business.
yeah, business, yes. Kingdom, I think kingdom is one. Like when you say those words, what is it that you think about? And then it will begin to show you paradigms. So I tested this on my best buddy from college, Tim Harrell. His dad was a missionary, gave his life to missions, and forsook the inheritance and went all out into South Africa. And I told Tim, I've got a guy in our office that's one of our buyer's agents. He works for me as one of our employees. His name is Perry Butler, and loves the Lord, really loves the Lord, and he's doing good work. Doesn't have a ministry as you would term a ministry in today's terms, of which we're trying to get rid of that. And I told Tim the other day, we had him over for lunch, I said, Tim, how would you respond if I told you that your dad's calling and what he has done is no more sacred than what Perry does today? He's like, I'd really want you to explain that. And I said, right there, I'm so glad you responded like that. Because what you have said right there and what is in your mind is that your dad is on a higher plane, at least in the area of his calling, than Perry is. That is a problem. And it's not that we want to bring your dad down here. No, his calling is high and is great. But so is Perry's. Why? Because we're all called to bring God glory through completing the work He's given us to do. Am I right? So we're raising Perry up to that level. What can dry the bones? A crushed spirit. So when you say you are down here and I am up here because I am a full-time minister, we've got people that aren't walking around like, oh, my spirit's crushed. No, they're making money. They're living in Hakuna Matata land. They're doing all this and their bones are completely dry. And so it was awesome to have that conversation. And then I talked with him about the church and I talked with him about who we are in Christ. And then in a period of about 10 minutes, and I probably botched some of it, but in 10 minutes he was like, I see where you're going with this now. And I said, that's why the folks that will be the most alarmed at what we have to say are the ones that are in the higher calling. Because if they're going to, I think it was you that said this, Cranford, last week, that if the Levite, the Levitical calling, the priestly calling, the full-time ministry calling, is going to forsake the inheritance of being able to have financial gain, well, there's got to be some type of value that they receive from that. And so to be able to have a higher calling and to be able to attach your identity to something that's a higher calling is valuable. So therefore, that's the value that they get because they've given up the financial value. Does that make sense? Not that I want to get too deep into that.
With honor and respect, but it's
that's right. So when you go into, and this is, oh man, I want to pick up right, but I got to let you talk real quick. But when Jesus was in the temple and He turned the money changers' tables over, they asked Him, by what authority are you doing that? Who are you? You're not a full-time rabbi. You're not a full-time priest. You're not a full-time prophet. Who are you? And so I want to get into that later. So we did definitions. Then we talked calling and roles. We're all called to the same thing. Although I kind of want to rethink that. Anyway, just keep that on the back burner. That our goal and our calling is to complete the work. We talked about being producers and not consumers, which we really talked about rivers, being a river and not a pond. And then what can you do with a river? There's lots of different things you can do with a river. The secret to giving is in receiving, and the secret to resting is in working. So if you want to enter God's rest, you have to enter God's work. And when you complete that work, you enter His ultimate rest. And then we talked about our history as how we started out with, God, we surrendered our lives to full-time ministry. And we got applauded for that. Little did we realize we had surrendered our hearts and our lives to full-time ministry the day we gave our hearts to Jesus Christ. And so, anyway,